What is it that you're fighting for? What's your mission with Bigly Sales?
So I want to solve this problem. I want to fix customer support. I want to fix call centers. I want to make it wonderful as an experience for people and use AI to do it. And the tech is here. We have it working in a sandbox environment already. So, just imagine next time you call into your bank, you call Bank of America, instead of getting an automated system, so a sweet sounding person picks up the phone, man or woman. We'll test different voices, right? You can do like a little spin-off of Morgan Freeman or, James Earl Jones or maybe Elizabeth Hurley or whatever. Like whatever your favorite kind of voice is. Like, do you want to have Hugh Grant be talking to you like during your thing? Right? And
part of your profile at the bank, it knows who your favorite voice actor is. And
that'd be amazing, right?
Heroes are an inspiring group of people. Every one of them, from the larger-than-life comic book heroes you see on the big silver screen, to everyday heroes that let us live the privileged lives we do. Every hero has a story to tell. From the doctor saving lives at your local hospital, to the war veteran down the street who risked his life for our freedom, to the police officers and the firefighters who risk their safety to ensure ours. Every hero is special and every story worth telling. But there is one class of heroes that I think is often ignored. The entrepreneur, the creator, the producer. The ones who look at the problems in this world and think to themselves, you know what? I can fix that. I can help people. I can make a difference. Then they go out and do exactly that by creating a new product or introducing a new service. Some go on to change the world. Others make a world of difference to their customers. Welcome to The Hero Show. Join us as we pull back the masks on the world's finest heropreneurs and learn the secrets to their powers, their success, and their influence, so you can use those secrets to attract more sales, make more money, and experience more freedom in your business. I'm your host, Richard Matthews, and we are on in 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome back to The Hero Show. My name is Richard Matthews, and today I have the pleasure of having Thomas Ryan on the line. Thomas, are you there?
Hey, I'm here. How are you?
Awesome. So glad to have you here. I know we were chatting before we got started. You're coming in from South Florida, is that right?
Yeah, I'm down in the Fort Lauderdale area.
Fort Lauderdale. We spent all of the last year and a half traveling all around Florida and visiting everything around there. The only place we ever skipped was Miami, Fort Lauderdale. We had to go
gotta
around.
come, man. You gotta
gotta
come.
come back
We have
down
all the
there.
Michelin star restaurants, and we have the great beaches and
Yeah.
entertainment and.
It was, because we're traveling in the RV. And so for our audience that's following us, we're still in California. We'll be back in Florida in a few months. But as you're going down that East Coast there, it's all the way down to, what is it? Fort Pierce. The cost to stay is fairly reasonable. And then you get down to Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and it suddenly jumps 4 to 6x
That sounds about right.
for the cost to stay for the same month. And I'm like, oh man, we have to really want to stay here for a month to pay the rates.
Did you make it to the Keys or anything?
We did. We actually skipped over Fort Lauderdale and went and stayed in the Keys. We have a membership at a site there at the Keys, so it's crazy. But when we can get booked in there, we can stay for 2 weeks in the Keys for $200, which is nuts.
That's amazing.
So we did stay there, but we went scuba diving and we fed the iguanas that we're not supposed to feed, and fed the tarpon and all the other fun stuff you can do out there. Super cool.
Amazing, man.
So what I want to do before we get too far into the interview is just do an introduction of who you are, and then we'll dive into your story. So Thomas Ryan is the driving force behind Bigly Sales, an innovative AI sales automation company. As I said before we got on, all sorts of cool questions about that. As the CEO and founder, Thomas has been instrumental in developing cutting-edge AI tools that redefine the sales process. Bigly Sales is known for its AI sales agents designed to significantly enhance sales efficiency, demonstrating Thomas's commitment to innovating in the realm of AI-driven sales solutions. So before we get too far into that, what I want to start off with is, what are you guys known for, right? What's your business like? Who do you serve? What do you do for them?
So right now, what we're doing is we're automating the lead process for most businesses. At the moment, we're targeting home services, we're targeting legal, we're targeting insurance. The reason we're focusing on those areas is because there's a lot of specialization that goes into this. So we want to make sure that we understand exactly who we're targeting and that we can do it effectively and efficiently. And for us to just take on every business on earth is very difficult. So, for us to take on another roofing company, we're already dealing with roofing companies, covering 30,000 zip codes across the US. We're already dealing with, people doing bath remodeling and, kitchen remodeling across 30,000 zip codes across the US. So it's much easier for us to take another client in that area because it's the same questions, it's the same process, it's the same everything, so we're going segment by segment, but we're going to be doing everything over the next year or two.
That's really cool. So you guys, one of the things that's interesting to me, and it's a question I've always sort of had about these AI sales agents and whatnot, is a lot of times, you have both, someone reaches out to you on your site, right? And maybe that's, it's an email or it's a form or something. Is the agent responding to them like in the live chat, or are they responding to them via email, or are they are they calling them back? Like, what is the AI agent actually doing?
So we're doing all the above. Right now, we have email responses live. We have SMS responses live. We have all our autoresponders live. We can do any trigger event that you want. If we get a phone call right now, we're responding back with SMS, but we're going to have AI calls live probably in March at some point.
So, like, an actual AI agent will be able to call a human being back and have a live two-way conversation?
Yeah, so what we do is we hook this up to Claude and to ChatGPT. And right now we have a latency down to under a second. And we're playing around with this in our sandbox right now, but we can say, okay, here's the 4 or 5 questions that we need to get answered for this business. Let's do something really easy like home services, right? So it'll be, do you own your own home, right? So are you the homeowner? Is it a single family house, right? You're not in a condo building. Might want to ask, are you in a gated community, right? So we'll get the questions that they need answered. It will ask that, and then it'll book that appointment and schedule that appointment, or we can have it do a live transfer to, an agent after that if it's something that's a more complex sale, if it's an insurance product or something like that where you need to talk to a licensed agent afterwards. But we can give it whatever questions we want to have it ask those questions to that person. And we can literally clone any voice there is. So I could take your voice, we could clone your voice, we could have it
We've
sound exactly like you.
we've done,
And
voice cloning with I actually taught my son how to do voice cloning, and he has gotten all of his friends and their parents to clone all their voices for a novel that he's written, and he's currently using AI to voice act his novel so he can have an audiobook version of his novel.
that's
Um,
amazing. That's amazing.
yeah,
My daughter's doing a novel as well. So I think the most valuable thing you can teach kids or anyone right now is how to use these tools. If
yeah,
you're good at using these tools, you're going to be 10 times more valuable than an employee who doesn't know how to use these tools. So if you're running your own business, if anything you're doing with this, you should have some people playing around with this stuff because it's going to be, just incredibly
yeah.
valuable. But
I
we can clone your voice and we can basically have it answer any question, and then we can feed it all your company data. We put it into a vector database so it can access it very quickly. And any question that you ask, it'll be able to answer your question and then go back and get the form fill done.
Yeah, and I was like, I literally just hired a personal assistant who will probably hear this episode, but like we ran them through. I ran several applicants through like a test task of like, hey, here's what I want you to do, and the ones that actually used AI to help improve their responses are the ones that actually got considered for the position because I need people who know how to use these tools and play with them and to get the best result possible. And like to that end, my as soon as ChatGPT sort of got to the point where we could have like a professional account, which it feels like the world has changed dramatically in 1 year, but it was like summertime last year I bought my son an account for school, and I was like, "Listen, if you turn in," because we homeschool because we travel, and I was like, "If you turn in something to me that still has grammar and structural errors in it, I'll give it right back to you." I was like, "You have access to, you know, robots that can fix that stuff for you. The world will not accept spelling errors and grammar errors and other things going forward because it's obvious that you haven't used the tools that are available to you." So I'm like, it's a requirement for our homeschool stuff now that they learn to use these tools.
Yeah, and a large portion of my team is offshore, right? So a lot of them speak English as a second language, and it's like you better have a Calendly, yeah, or a Calendly. You better have a Grammarly account. You better have a ChatGPT account. You should be using this stuff. Like with our SEO, I have a couple of people doing SEO. We're creating 20 SEO articles a day. They're able to create these articles. They're able to, go and edit these articles and get these things put out. Where we can put out 600 articles a month, and if you go back a year, you would be lucky with that same team to get 20 out, right? So you can just 30x the amount of work, 50x the amount of work, and this is with good quality. If we had slightly lower quality, we could probably do 100x.
So, just out of curiosity, what do you do if or how do you handle more complicated like sales situations? Say, for instance, you and I get off of this call today, and I want to have, we talked about sending you, I don't know, an invite to do a content planning session with our podcast team. Could your AI system handle that kind of a follow up?
The short version is we can do anything. It's just what do we have the bandwidth to do right now? So unless we were going to be able to do this for 50 or 100 large companies, I'd probably say no to that right now until we have more
Yeah,
bandwidth. Right?
yeah,
Like literally, we're walking away from business that's outside of our core competency or just something different because it takes just as much time for me to set it up for a giant organization as it does for, a one-man band. And, there's just a lot more revenue with an organization with hundreds of people than there is with
Yeah. To that
a
end,
couple
are
of
you
guys.
working on setting up like self-service options for smaller businesses who are outside of the core competencies?
That's it. That's the SDK. So we have an SDK that's in beta right now, and any business can go and set that up. And if you have a developer, or if you just want to sit down with ChatGPT and be like, "Hey, ChatGPT, how do I implement this?" Right? You can do it. So
For
feed,
those of you who
feed
haven't played with
ChatGPT
it.
your API documentation, and then say, "How do I do this?" And like, there it is.
Yeah, for those
It's
of you who have not played with it, I spent 6 hours a few months ago playing with ChatGPT, and I was like, "I wanna write an iPhone app that does XYZ." And I don't know how to write iPhone apps, I don't know anything about it. So I sat down with ChatGPT and I was like, "Tell me the questions I need to ask you about writing an iPhone app." And it told me the questions I needed to ask it. So I started asking those questions, and then it would answer them, and 6 hours later, I had a functioning iPhone app that did what I wanted to do. Yeah, it's
it's
un
just, I mean, you couldn't have done that in probably 3 months a year ago.
Yeah,
You still might be working on it,
yeah.
right? And you were able to crank it out in 6 hours because you basically have the God machine in the background that knows everything that was ever written on the internet.
It's like
So
it reminds me so I know it seems like ancient history, right? But, like, when I was doing that, the context window for ChatGPT was 8,000 characters, and for those of you guys who haven't used ChatGPT, a context window is how much, like, memory it is capable of accessing in your chat, and currently it's at, like, 126,000, but it was, like, 8,000 when I was playing with it, and it reminded me it's like you have a PhD in everything, like an assistant who has a PhD in everything, but her name is Dory, and she can't remember, like, what she did 5 minutes ago. So you have to keep reminding her.
yeah, all those limitations have basically gone away. Right now, I don't know if they've updated Claude, but Claude was at 75 pages last I checked, and ChatGPT was like at 200 or 300 pages of information that it could remember. And when the next update comes out, which is going to be 6 months from now, it's now going to be 500 pages or 1,000 pages or 5,000, whatever. The rate that this is growing is just exponential. So what they're saying is the AI tools, the power is doubling every 3 to 6 months, right?
Yeah, no,
So
it's
go
that
ahead.
whole did I say that whole Moore's Law thing? It's out the window at this point, right? It's not, doubling every 18 months, it's doubling and tripling and quadrupling in months' time, and the businesses who aren't taking advantage of this stuff right now are going to lose out in the near term, right? It's not like a future problem you're gonna have to deal with, like, you should figure out how you're implementing AI in your business today.
A 6 month double means this is 1,000 times more powerful in 5 years.
Yeah,
It's a million times more powerful in 10 years. So, 2024 is the year. 2023, this was mostly a toy. The API wasn't out. No one had built anything because the API wasn't out. Every company out there is talking about building these things. If they're a software company, they're already building these things. You're seeing layoffs in Silicon Valley. They're directly related to this, right? The Googles, the Microsofts, the Apples, they're already letting people go because AI is doing the work that people used to do. So, I mean, that's happening already. Everyone is going to be using these tools, and 2024 is the year, right? Like it's the year that this becomes mainstream, where everyone has built this into whatever app that they're
yep.
building, whatever tool already exists, be it a Salesforce or, or an SAP or an Oracle or, any or Microsoft, anything Microsoft is doing, it's going to be in everything.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know it's a long sort of introduction to what it is you do. I want to dive into your origin story, right? So every good comic book hero has an origin story. It's the thing that made them into the hero they are today. And we heard that story. Were you born a hero, or were you bit by a radioactive spider that made you wanted to start an AI sales company? Or did you have
That's
a job
exactly
that
what happened. I got the
actually was a
radioactive spider
radioactive
bite.
spider? Yeah. So basically, how did you get here? How did you start Bigly Sales and get into this AI world and building what you're building now?
So I was in staffing my whole career. Both my parents ran staffing companies, of varying sizes. And I grew up in that space. I was working there since the time I was 14. I was working in the staffing world. So I was dealing with sales teams. These were really direct sales organizations. So I grew up in direct sales organizations, and I worked there for, basically 25 years. So that was my background. And so you said, well, how the hell do you get into AI, right? How do you get into doing this? Back in 2003, I got pulled onto a project where we were redoing our CRM system. And it was, how do you make the CRM function better? How should it be set up? How do we want one screen going to the next? What do we want the rules to be? How do we deal with these interactions? And this is for an organization with hundreds of employees. So they're relatively complex interactions, and then you'd have fights between the guys about who got credit for what deal, and over territories and stuff like that. So it was, how do you set up all these rules? And so anyway, that was kind of my introduction. I was on that project. I was playing with it. I was saying how things should run, how things should work, right? Looking at what systems were in place. And then I launched my own company. I launched a staffing agency. It was going to be mostly online. And the initial model didn't work very well, which happens a lot with startups, right? You try doing something, it doesn't work exactly the way you want, you pivot. So we did a more traditional staffing model and went from 20 grand in sales to 12 million in 18 months. And anyway, what was really moving the needle for us was the tech, right? The ability to take a database, sort from 2 million people in our database, get it down to the 200 people that we thought were right for a particular job, be able to click one button, be able to email everyone. So the initial idea for Bigly was a CRM system, and it was going to solve the problems that exist, at least in my mind, with most CRMs. The problem is the data doesn't make it into the system, that your emails don't make it in. Now, Salesforce and the newer ones, if you have a newer CRM and you're paying hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars for it, it probably does this now, right? But at the time, most of the emails wouldn't make it into the CRM. It wasn't connected to your phone at all. Most of them still aren't connected to your phone. So none of your text messages would make it into the CRM, right? None of your phone calls would make it into the CRM. And then what you would have to do is, whenever you got done with a phone call or something, you were supposed to go back into the CRM and you were supposed to manually log all of that data. And salespeople absolutely hated doing it. And because they hated doing it, and if you actually did it, you were going to spend an extra hour or two a day basically doing busy work. It usually didn't get done with most people in most organizations. And then there was a bunch of problems for, companies, right? If your sales rep has all the data on his cell phone and it's not in your computer system, that guy walks out the door. One, they're probably bringing most of their clients with them, right? So as the business owner, you're not even going to know who those people are. You might not have a way to contact them. If it's deals that are in progress, you might not know those deals exist, right? So a guy, would say, "Hey, I have a couple big deals I'm about to close." Walk out the door, take them across the street to another firm, you know, get an offer for twice the commission, and basically just take all of the work out of your pocket, right? So we would see this stuff all the time. I would see all these issues all the time of, guy leaves and everything's on sheets of paper that he has in a notebook, text messages back and forth, and none of the stuff is anywhere. And someone leaves, it's like, oh my God, we don't know what happened to all this work. So anyway, the whole idea was to automate this whole thing, to make sure that every text message, every email, every phone call, everything was logged in that CRM. You could see it and you could do reporting on it, you know, and you would save the data entry time, and you would have a record of everything that was transpiring in your organization. You could track people, you could track them remotely, right? So that was the initial idea. And what we found when we went to market with this is guys are like, yeah, that's great, but I really just want leads, or I really just want to be able to text all the guys in my database, right? So we had a lot of people who were just using it to do text blasts, right? They just wanted to go and message, they had 10,000 people in their database. They wanted to send them all a message. Hey, we've got this deal coming up. We're doing this special, are you interested in this? So that's how people were actually using the system. And then we saw all sorts of problems with it. A lot of them would use a VA, right, or a very junior person to do this sort of work. Oftentimes the language would be broken English. You know, the follow-up would be terrible, right? So a person would send out a blast, they would get responses into that blast, and they wouldn't follow up with them for a week, right? Well, that doesn't work very well. So we were thinking, how do we fix these problems? How do we respond to things instantaneously? How do we evaluate when someone is sending out messages that aren't TCPA compliant? How do we, there was all sorts of issues we were running into. And then we saw what was happening with ChatGPT. They came out with GPT-3, and it was like I was hit with a thunderbolt. I was like, this fixes every issue we have overnight. This fixes all of it, right?
Yeah.
So we applied for the beta group for the API. We got it right after the beta group. We were the first release after beta. And I'd already had a big team of developers who were building all these communication tools, for email and for text. And, anyway, that's the whole genesis.
That's really amazing, and I know, like, just hearing you talk, I can already see, like, our organization has those problems, and we're small, right? We only got one person doing sales and one person doing follow-up, and, like, I know, for instance, because I do a lot of the sales for our own company, that it's like, I get off the phone calls get off a Zoom call, and we have the Zoom call recorded, so, like, we have the transcript, everything that went down, but, like, that doesn't exist in the CRM unless someone puts it in the CRM, and, like, the
Correct.
tasks that we talked about on the call don't make it into the CRM unless someone puts it into the CRM. And so, like, we hire a human being to manage that stuff, and then, like, we
Or
text
you
back
could do it yourself and spend an extra hour or two a day doing it,
yeah,
right?
and so, like,
Which
if I text back and forth with a lead, that stuff doesn't make it into the CRM unless I put it in there myself. If they email me back from something that we've sent out, even if we sent the email from the CRM, it just ends up in our email system. It doesn't end up back in the CRM, and we've got advanced CRMs, right? We're not using, like, cheap stuff, right? We're paying money for these things, and none of that stuff happens, right, unless we make it happen, and so we make it happen by force with human labor. And so you're basically saying you built a system that solves all of those problems, and then take it a step further, now it'll actually interact on your behalf,
That's
probably better than
correct.
you would.
That's it. So initially it was going to be that you could just schedule out everything, right? I want to schedule every communication for a year. So we'd already built out the tools to say, okay, I'm going to put someone into this sequence, and right? And every month I'm going to follow up with them. I'll send them a text every month, or I'll send them, a text every 2 weeks, once a month a text, and once a month an email, and you can create whatever kind of sequence you want. But you manually still had to do that. I had to program whatever sequence I wanted. I had to come up with everything I wanted to say during that sequence. And then if someone responded back, I still had to notice that they had responded and get to them in a timely fashion.
Okay,
So
so I know we're only, like, 15 minutes into the interview here, but we have to shut up and take my money point yet? Um, so, like, legitimately, when is your SDA coming or SDK coming out? And
well, it's in
when
beta. It's in beta. If you want to play around with it in beta, we can get it to you, probably this week.
that would be amazing, and I will sing your praises because 'cause we'll develop that whole thing out for, small business like ourselves. That's genius. It solves the exact problem that I'm currently trying to solve that I can't figure out how to solve because the tools don't exist yet. You're saying the tools do exist, you made them.
Yes, exactly. I needed to make I'm disorganized, right? So for me,
Yeah, me too.
organizational
Totally.
systems, I try to, okay, just meet with everyone every day at this exact time and make sure this happens, but you're running a business. I'm working 60, 80 hours a week already. I got 3 kids. I'm getting pulled in 6 million different directions. There's problems, there's fires, there's things,
Yeah.
right? So, and just remember to do this particular thing. And, it's very hard for me. So to have a system that automates all of this to make sure all the human error stuff, of which I'm prone to, don't happen, you know, and if you don't look at it, all this stuff, you're like, oh, why is this a big deal? And then you start running a sales organization, you start looking at what people are actually doing. It's like, did you follow up with that guy who said he wanted to buy from us last week? And people are like, oh, I forgot, you know, yeah, I mean, just in the stuff, the training stuff where you'd have to train over and over for, a lot of this kind of blocking and tackling, very simple things. And
Yeah.
they sound
So
simple until you put it into practice, and then nothing's simple.
this is
So
just a tactical question for you. One of the things that we've been doing for the last 3 months is every single sales call has been recorded, and then I had a human being go through and they're currently doing that, right? So they're not done yet, but every single sales call is broken out. So we have the pitch separated, and we have every question that clients have asked us and the answers that were given. And then we're gonna work on ranking them into like, "Hey, here's, better answers to this question, less good answers to this question." And we'll have, like, a whole set of essentially training data, like, "This is how we pitch. This
that's
is all the."
amazing. And the whole thing is with the AI. If you now you're just doing this for a small organization, but say you're doing this for an organization where you have 1,000 people on the phone,
Mhm.
right? And if you have 1,000 people on the phone, a lot of them probably are in northern Mexico. A lot of them speak English as a second language. A lot of them might not have completed high school, right? It's probably not the best and the brightest globally who are doing this. So to be able to fix all these problems once, come up with the best answer for this stuff or the 5 best answers, and then have the AI try those different answers and then be able to go and analyze that and say, where did this succeed and where did it fail? Right. And then to be able to keep iterating with it, to be able to just train one system one time to do all these things versus having to train people over and over. Someone comes in, they're there for a week, they walk out the door, right? They're there for a year, they walk out the door. and all the knowledge goes with them, and you have to keep training people over and over, and then just all the other issues that you have with hiring, especially with hiring offshore, managing those people, making sure they show up, making sure they're actually working, tracking everything, doing all, it's a logistical nightmare. Yeah, the AI being able to take all of that data and analyze that data and then come up with it, they've already said, Altman has already said, one of the first capabilities that AI is going to have is it's going to be super persuasive. And this
Yeah.
is why, because it will be able to take all of these answers and look at it, and you'll be able to train a system on it. It might not happen this year, but it's probably going to happen in 2025 that someone will have taken this for a particular data set and figured out everything that works. And I mean, that's something that we're going to be doing as well.
Yeah, it's fascinating too. So one of the things I talk about, I speak on AI regularly because we use a lot of AI in our agency on the service delivery side. And we talk a lot about using AI to break the iron triangle, right? And so what people, if you're familiar with the iron triangle, is better, cheaper, faster, pick two, right?
Yep.
And everyone's familiar with that trope, right? And I was like, if you want to play with AI, there's two things that you should understand in your business. One is that AI, a lot of people are still trying to replace human beings with AI, which will eventually happen. But right now, some of the best uses of it are pairing AI with human beings, right? And so you can get super powered human beings. And to that end, we're able to offer, just like for instance, some of the writing stuff that we do. And you mentioned this earlier with the SEO things that you guys are doing, 600 plus articles a month, is that
With two people.
you can have better quality than you would if it was just human beings. You can increase the quantity and you're getting it done faster, right? So you get better, cheaper, and faster. And so then you can take those cost savings and you can pass them on to your clients and you can pass them on to your margin, right? Because there's enough cost savings there that you can do both, right? And a lot of that comes with marrying the power of these tools with your human team. And because it's just really fascinating to see what you can do with it. And I know we've been steadily increasing the number of clients that we're serving, and our labor costs are going up, but they're not going up at the same rate they were a year ago because the same team can handle more work while maintaining quality and speed because of the efficiencies that are coming from leveraging the tools that we have now.
Yeah, I
Uh,
couldn't agree more. I just couldn't agree more. That again, I'm going to keep repeating this. I'm going to be a broken record. The most valuable thing you can do is learn how to use these tools. Get your kids using these tools. The employees who know how to use these tools will be able to do 10 times what the employees who don't are. So if you're
yeah,
worried about your job, learn how to use these tools.
yeah,
Right? If you're
absolutely.
running a business, learn how to use these tools. Your business will make more money. And it's not, oh, this isn't ready yet. I mean, we're still, to me, this is like, I'm going to date myself now, but you remember back when the internet, where you had these 14.4 modems and stuff like that, and you hear like,
Really?
you'd hear
It's
like the noises when it was trying to
That's
connect,
good.
and then you'd try to download a picture or something, and it would take 5 minutes, and people are like, this is never going to catch on. No one's ever going to use this internet thing. We're at that point with AI.
Yeah,
That's where we are. And one of the big bottlenecks is just the processing power. And they're trying to make the chips fast enough to keep up with the demand for AI. That won't be a bottleneck forever.
yeah.
So it's just
And
going to
we're
explode from.
we're already seeing large models get turned into smaller models. I would imagine within 2, maybe pushing it out to 3 years, that you'll have on-device processing, like on your iPhone or on your Android device, that are just as capable as the massive server things are today, right?
It wouldn't
Uh,
surprise me at all.
it wouldn't surprise me even a little bit. It won't be too long before it's built into your watches and your smart rings and your eye goggles that, you know, the stuff that's coming. But man, you got to learn how to use this stuff because it's not going anywhere. Right? I remember that. I remember convincing my mom in high school that we needed to buy dial-up internet. Made all the fun noises and whatnot. And I remember the first time that I was so excited to have access to Yahoo search. And I had my computer in my closet in my bedroom. So we had like a walk-in closet. And I was like, I needed a place for a computer. And, houses weren't built with places for computers back then because they weren't a thing. And I remember I was very excited the first time we got it all set up. And I brought my mom and I was like, look, we're connected to the internet. And it's like 10 minutes to get connected. And she was like, I don't know what we're doing. And she left to go get coffee or something. And then I was like, it finally like loaded up and I was like, look, this is Yahoo. We could search for things. And I searched for, I believe it was Shania Twain, and I clicked enter. And, it draws like every single line of the web page, one line at a time, like all the way down to the search results. And it took like 10 minutes to do the whole thing. And my mom is like, this is ridiculous. Why would you care about this at all? I'm like, this is going to change the world.
Yeah, people are like, this is the fax machine, right? It's just it's the fax machine. It's a catalog.
Yeah.
People didn't get it, right?
Yeah.
So early on, I forget who it was. It was one of the economists who won like the Nobel Prize was like, this is going to be no more impactful than the fax machine. And I think he's still an economist, but boy, did he get that one wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to switch gears and talk a little bit about your superpowers, right? So every iconic hero has a superpower, whether that's a fancy flying suit made by their genius intellect or the ability to call down thunder from the sky. In the real world, heroes have what I call a zone of genius, which is either a skill or a set of skills that you were born with or you developed over the course of your career that really help set you apart. They allow you to help your clients slay their villains, go on top of their own journeys. The way I like to frame this for my guests is if you look at all the skills that you developed over the course of your life and your career, there's probably a common thread between all those skills, and that common thread is where you find your superpower. So, what is the superpower that you've been bringing to bear to help build Bigly sales?
I mean, it's really just my background and my experience on this. So if you're coming at this from a straight programming standpoint, I don't think you're going to get this right because you haven't seen how these things work in real life. And to look at the nitty gritty of it, the amount of work that you have to do to try to manage one of these sales organizations to make it function reasonably well is Herculean. So to take all of those skill sets and then mix them with the actual program, the analytical stuff. And right now, like we just hired a guy from IIT. IIT is like the MIT of India, except it has an under 1% acceptance rate. These are the guys who are like you see on that Scripps Spelling Bee challenge,
Yeah,
right? Those are the kids who end up going to IIT, like people like that, right? Where they keep spelling words that you've never heard of before. And you're like, I think I have a pretty good vocabulary. And this kid just spelled a word I've never heard of. And then the next one does it too. And the next one does it too. And the next, like, this is unbelievable. My background for this, my recruiting background, being able to find great people, being able to find that talent and to be able to, have them see my vision of the future. I haven't found someone who runs a large sales or call center organization that isn't like, oh, we're not going to need this. Yeah, I don't see the use case. I don't see the value. I mean, it's 100%. Some of them want to see like, yeah, let me see it in action first, right? Let me see if we can actually do it. But I mean, we're 100% of the people I'm talking to are interested. It might
if
be just do it with 1% of my calls first, or do it with 1% of my leads first, and then we'll
if the
work from there.
reality
But
is half of the promise, it's still worth it, right?
yeah, and we're just building this stuff like crazy. And I've had an idea for recruiting that I've wanted to put into effect forever, and we're finally doing it this year. I'm running a coding contest. So we built all of our stuff in Laravel, which is a PHP framework. And PHP is basically what the internet's built on. It's like 80 or 90% of the internet's on PHP.
Yes.
Um,
Look, all of WordPress, everything's on PHP.
exactly. Yeah.
It's
Yeah, WordPress is PHP. So anyway, this is a framework, and what a framework does is just allows people to, if like you're looking for a shopping cart, someone can build a shopping cart, and then you can just plug it in with a couple lines of code without having to build an entire shopping cart from scratch. So there's a lot of solved problems out there, right? How do you handle passwords? How do you do logins? How do you do so rather than have to build all this stuff from scratch, you can grab a couple lines of code and you can implement it without having to build the whole thing. So instead of it taking you a month, it takes you an hour to do a lot of things. Right. So that's why people use frameworks. But anyway, we're sponsoring a coding competition for all the best people in India who work with this framework within PHP. And, I'm just so excited about doing that to be able to, find that talent pool of people who are exceptional and allow them to prove their worth rather than find the people who are the best marketers, I think is going to be really special.
Yeah, that's really cool. So, if I'm hearing you correctly, superpower comes from just a background and actually real world experience, and then applying that to solving a real world problem with some of these new tools.
Correct. That's it. I grew up in a space. I didn't love it, right? It wasn't what I wanted to do with my life. I like building the tools. So being able to do that and, I've always kind of been able to see where things are going. It's just something I've been born with. I've been able to see like, I've had very good vision generally about where things are going, not always. Not so much with social trends and things like that, but a lot of global macro stuff and just
It's interesting
this
for
is
me.
going to change the world more in 5 years than the internet did in the last 25. This is going to
Oh, yeah.
change life so much for people. They just don't understand it.
Yeah, it is dramatic. And like, it was the kind of thing that, like, the first couple of months, I was like, what is this? Why do I even care? And like, 2 months later, I'm like, oh, this is world changing the way that everything else that's promised to be world changing is actually going to be world changing. It's going to be like internet, iPhone, AI,
Yeah.
right?
Well, it's the internet, and then it was the internet on your phone, right? Because before that, you couldn't really use the internet on your phone. It was unusable. And now this is going to actually do things for you. You can give it any question. Like, remember when Ask Jeeves came out?
Oh
You're
yeah,
supposed to be able to ask it anything, and it would tell you the answer. Well, this, you can ask it anything, it gives you the answer. If it's a very complex multi-step problem with, a thousand different data points that you need to grab, it's going to tell you, yeah, it's too much computing power for me right now. Why don't you look it up? It doesn't say the first part, but it's like, oh, maybe you can find that data source over here. Here's a link to a website, right? But if it's any specific one part question, it'll just give you the answer now.
yeah. It's crazy. Like one of the things that I did just over this course of this last week is I was working on a spreadsheet to help work on like margins, cost of labor across our whole company. And I wanted to get access to data that I was like, I know formulas to do this kind of stuff exist, but like I don't have a degree in Excel. And in order to do the kind of math that I wanted it to do, you would need a degree in Excel.
Yeah.
And like, so I'd have to hire someone who has a degree in Excel. So I went and looked for people who have a degree in Excel. That's, upwards of $50 to $80 an hour, if not more, right? To find someone who can do that work. So I just went to ChatGPT and loaded up my spreadsheet and I was like, here's the data points I care about. Here's the data I want. Can you tell me how to write the formulas? Done. Two
Yeah,
seconds. Um,
absolutely.
for
And it's
free.
like that with everything. And it's
Yeah.
like that with everything. Or maybe you're paying $20 a month, right?
Yeah.
Something, but it's everything is like that. What you were talking about building an app before, I did the same thing. I was trying to set up, and I'm not an engineer by trade, right? So I was trying to set up Auto GPT on my computer just to play around with it when that first came out. And it was like, oh, you need to do some coding for this. So I put it into ChatGPT, and it gave me all the Python libraries. It showed me how to download all these different Python libraries and how to pull all this data in. And like I got it up and running. It took me 3 or 4 hours. But, you know, if before this existed, I don't think I would have been able to do that in a year. And I
Yeah.
probably would have given up on it well before then. Right.
Instead, you succeeded in a few hours and maybe a couple of curse words.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you take it's
Well,
like it
nice to
didn't work. So I would take the error and I put it back in. I say, hey, it gave me this error. And it's like, oh my God, we must have done something wrong. Do this and this, and spits out the
yeah,
answer. And I plug that in, that one works. I'm like, it's unbelievable. Right?
yes.
Where was this? I mean, this is why I gave up programming when I was in college. They gave me like a Fortran project or something when I was at Tulane. And, I remember one night I couldn't figure out what the bug was, and I was working on it for like 6 hours, and I'm like, yeah, this isn't for me. Because I was
Yep.
going to do it. I'm like, this is just brutal. I'm beating my head against the wall. I don't know what's wrong with this. I've been staring at this for hours, and I can't figure it out. But you give it to the machine, and go, "Bleep," and 10 seconds later, oh, here's the error, and this is what it means, and this is where your code is wrong, and here's the new code.
Here's
Okay.
fix it. Yeah, I was doing that with the app development that I did, and I'd be like, it didn't work. Here's the error that it popped up." And I would be like, "Here's all the documents you need to reference to find the error." And it would just be like, "Oh, found the error. Here's the mistake I made. I rewrote the page for you. Put that back in there and see what it does now." And I would do that, and it would put it out and be like, "Oh, we got a different error now. That's progress. Like, here's the new error."
Absolutely, absolutely. And now it has access to everything ever written on Stack Overflow. So it used to be like these developers. What they're saying now is it used to be a 10-year engineer was a lot more valuable than a guy like right out of school because he would have this experience. But they're saying now the engineers coming out of school are as good as the people who've been doing it for a decade. And the reason is because they're not afraid to use this tool. Their ego isn't too big. So they run into something that they don't know how to do, and boop, it just gives them the answer.
Yep.
And a lot of the engineers I'm dealing with, they're like, if there's something I don't like doing, like I don't like scripting, I don't like, doing front end design. So I want to make a green button with some shading. I'll say, hey, give me a green button with some shading. And here's the code. And it might have taken them 4 hours to do it before. And now it takes them a couple of seconds.
Yeah. Yeah. The world is not prepared for how quickly it's going to shift.
No, and this is version one.
Yeah.
I mean, we're 1994 level, right? This is the internet where it's still that modem, right? It's
Yeah.
still making
Still
beeping
making
noises
noise.
on you.
It's making beeping noises. The ChatGPT equivalent of beeping noises is you've run out of requests for the hour.
Yeah, it's just going to advance at, 4 times the speed that the internet did,
Yeah.
or faster, maybe 8 times the speed. I mean, just and the exponential growth. People, I can't wrap my mind around that. If it advances a millionfold in the next 5 to 10 years, what does that look like? I have no idea, but I know it's going to be startling. I mean, I know it's going to be amazing. Even like the picture stuff that they looked at the pictures that you had. So I don't know if you played around with any of the imaging tools.
I have all of them.
With all of them. Oh, okay. Which is your favorite?
Right now, Dolly 3 inside of ChatGPT 4 because it writes the prompts for you, which that was my biggest problem with Midjourney 3 was like I couldn't or Midjourney 5 or whatever. I was like, I couldn't get it to do the same thing, and now I'm able to get really specific things out of Dolly 3 because of GPT 4 integration.
Midjourney still isn't quite as good with the prompts, but their stuff just looks amazing.
It does look really.
Like, I mean, just amazing. So if you look at the Midjourney stuff like a year and a half ago, like you would still have like kind of holes in pictures and it wouldn't look that good. Well, we went to doing marketing stuff. I mean, I could screw up a stick figure. I can barely draw, right? Like, drawing is not one of my talents. I put a prompt in and we used it for our marketing stuff. And I'm like, hey, marketing team, like, go do this. I don't want to hear like you can't get an image for something or something is, copywritten. Just go in there and put it in. And 10 seconds later, you have some pictures. And if you don't like them, 10,
Yeah.
10 more seconds, you got some more pictures. And we ended up using it. So we put together like 20 or 30, sales brochures and we did it in an afternoon,
Yeah.
you know.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about the flip side of your superpower, right? So the superpower comes from like that having a background in real world expertise and bringing that to solving real world problems, right? So the fatal flaw is generally the flip side of your superpower, right? And just like every Superman has a kryptonite or Wonder Woman has her bracelets of victory that she can't remove without going mad. You probably have something that's held you back in your business, right? For me, it was a couple of things. I struggled with perfectionism for a long time, so kept me from shipping product into the marketplace. And then I also struggled with lack of self care, which really, came out in like not having good boundaries with my time or good boundaries with my clients and let people walk all over me. Fixed a lot of those things over the course of growing my company. But I think more important than what your flaw is, how have you worked to overcome it so you could continue to grow and continue to succeed?
So I can tell you one of my fatal flaws is I think I've almost crippling ADHD, right? Where, I have to turn things off. I can't have my ringer on my phone. I hear that stupid thing beep and, I'm like Pavlov's dog. I'm, oh, what did I get? What's next? What do I have? Right. It's very hard for me to focus on what I should be doing, and especially if you know anything about ADHD. Well, I'm in charge of an organization, but you in charge of an organization, I work from home, I'm by myself, no one around is watching me, right? There's really no kind of penalty if I'm not doing something correctly, and then any of the procrastination and stuff, right? So it's how do I schedule and organize my time in such a way to get these tasks done, to get the things done that need to be accomplished, and, for me, it has to be organizational systems. If I don't use organizational systems, if I don't have something on my calendar, it doesn't exist, and I tell my assistant, I'm like, make sure I make my calls, right? Like, give me a call if I have something I have to do. Like, it's your job to make sure I show up because, I mean, shoot, it's like 50-50. I'm not going to be there, you know, unless I'm meeting the president or something. Like, unless it's hugely important, like, make sure I show up to stuff where I'm supposed to be because I get distracted with something. I'm, thinking about something else. And, it's a time management issue. Time is hard for me. So, my wife gets pissed off all the time that, it's like, you said we were leaving at 5. And I'm like, yeah, what time is it? And they're like, it's 5. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, just give me a couple of minutes to finish up and we'll be out of here. And, right. But it's hard for me to do that. So any organizational things that I can do that automate my life are helpful. And then it's remembering to use the organizational system that's the automation, right? Remembering to actually do the thing that, like I have a system like, okay, you just have to set your alarm for the morning. It's like, did I remember to set the alarm? Didn't I remember to set like I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yeah, yeah. I have sort of a similar sort of thing. I don't think I would probably be on the ADHD spectrum, but very similar in like if it's not on the calendar, it doesn't exist kind of thing. And then I have to make sure that like the notifications are turned on for all the calendar events because if it doesn't pop up and ding me, like that's why I wear the watch, right? Because the watch
Yep.
will ding me. It'll be like it'll buzz on my wrist and be like, "You have a meeting right now," and I'm like, "Oh, that's useful because if I Otherwise, it doesn't matter. Whereas if it was written on a piece of paper that I had a meeting at 12 o'clock,
I
there
have to
would
do a
be
lot of
no.
lists too. I do a
Yeah.
lot of lists like, hey, what are the 5 most important things I need to get accomplished? And then it's really prioritizing, right? So like I tell people, if you want to reach me, don't send me an email because email is someone else taking my time. And most of my emails are spam, they're junk, they're not important. So I'm like, if there's something that's an important task that you want a semi immediate response to, send me a text message because I have my Telegram and I have my WhatsApp and I have my text messages and I have my Slack and I have my email. And of course, I don't have one email, I have like 5 different emails, right? And, now I'm having people try to ping me on all these different things. And if I just tried to read every message I got, it would take up all 8 hours of my day or all 10 hours of my day. I could spend, literally every minute of my day just trying to read emails. Right. So, it's how do you prioritize what's the most important things that get done? So I try to make sure what are the 4 or 5 most important things I need to accomplish today? And I make sure I get those done. First thing in the morning when I come in, what's the highest priority thing that I need to get done? Work on that now.
Yeah.
Right. And, then what's number 2 on my list? Work on that next. So trying to do time boxing, you can do the time boxing type strategies, but really just saying, okay, do some sort of brain dump. What are the most important things that need to be happen? Right. And let's make sure I'm focusing on that and not on busy work. Right. I don't want to be
Yeah.
focusing on $10 an hour work. I want to be focusing on the things that are going to make the organization successful. And it changes all the time, right? Maybe it's dealing with my creative team. Maybe it's dealing with, my engineering team. Maybe it's dealing with some marketing problem or sales problem or what, whatever it might be. And it's always different.
Yeah.
Um,
I know for me, one of the things that was really helpful was it's two things. One is a concept I call micro completions. And so micro completions are just the idea that you have take something, whatever time, because time blocking is like, hey, I'm going to work on this thing from this period to this period, right? Whatever. That's like time blocking. And I take it to the next level. Be like, I have this amount of time, right? I've got an hour, or I've got 20 minutes, or I've got 10
yep.
minutes. What's something that I can take from start to finish in that period? Right. And so, and then less emphasis on, like what's the most important thing and more emphasis on what's something that I can complete. And complete means like deployed. Right. And so if I can deploy something in the time that I have, stacking completions snowballs really fast.
It's a great
And
method.
yeah. And so that was the one thing that really helped me do those things. And then the other one that really helped was restricting the amount of time that I allowed work to be in my life, and which is counterintuitive to getting more work done, but they work together, right? So when I started off 5 or 6 years ago, I was working 10, 12 hours a day. And like we 8.5x our company last year on an average of 4 hours a day, 4 days a week. So like 16-hour work weeks. And that progress to go from, 12-hour days, 7 days a week, right, to 4 hours a day, 4 days a week was really on this concept of like, hey, what happens if I reduce the amount of time that I allow myself to work? And you realize that creativity thrives with restrictions. It always does, right? If you put restrictions in place,
Absolutely.
creativity thrives. So I started like, how can I apply that to time? And what would happen then is, okay, I've only got 6 hours to work today. I've only got 8 hours to work today. I've only got 5 hours to work today. I've only got 4 days this week, right? What it does is it automatically squeezes the most important completions to the top. Like, okay, I've got this amount of time. What can I complete? And it's like you start stacking those completions because you restricted the amount of time that you have. Then you start making really big progress. And so when I was new at this, one of the things that I started doing was, to your end, putting things on my calendar that I were important to me and I didn't want to miss otherwise. So I'd like actually like plan a date with my 4-year-old, be like, hey, at 4 o'clock today, we're going to the park and we're going to go get ice
I
cream.
do that all the time.
Calendar. Right. And it's like something that someone else would be disappointed if I didn't show up. And now I'm like, now with those kind of things all sort of together, it's allowed me to really stack a lot of important completions together. And that's helped my brain that has a similar kind of thing where like I'll get lost and do all sorts of things that are irrelevant.
Yeah,
Um,
I think lots of people have that issue. I mean, I don't think I'm unique in any way, shape, or form with this. The
yeah.
agile methodology of doing things as well, of breaking large complex tasks down into a day worth of work, a couple hours worth of work, and then completing that task and then moving on to the next one. And then usually try and do the hardest tasks first rather than like so a lot of people say, I'm going to do all these easy things. I'm going to leave this hard thing for the end. And, then you just never get to the hard thing. Or with engineering, sometimes the whole thing falls apart at that point, right? Because we've done the easy tasks and then we go to do the main meat of it. And then the guys can't figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
right? So you always want to do that proof of concept kind of first and do the hardest piece of it first. One of the ways I used to hire for engineers is I would give them a task. I'd say, okay, what's the hardest task I'm trying to do right now? And say, hey, can you do this in a day? Right. And see if they could actually do it. And if they could do it, they got. So that was one of the other kind of tricks that I would use on this. And that worked pretty well for me. We still do some of that. One other thing along the lines of what you were talking about between the agile methodology on this and breaking everything down to small tasks and doing the hardest things first is trying to automate as much as humanly possible. Where I hate having to do work over and over. If there's a system that I can create to automate that stuff, right, where I don't have to remember it, then I'm like, oh crap, I forgot that there was something important I forgot. Like I'm just thinking, there's someone I got to pay a bill, right? There's this bill I got to pay for someone doing some landscaping on my place. And I forgot about it. I forgot about it yesterday, and I forgot about it today because it wasn't super high on my priority list. But if there's anything where I can start automating these tasks, where I can either delegate it, right? As you're growing a business, you have to be able to delegate. It's delegate and then inspect, right? That's delegate and
Yeah.
inspect. If you delegate and you don't inspect, it's garbage in, garbage out. But delegate and inspect are huge, and then automate. What can be automated? And with sales type stuff, right? If you get 100 leads in a month and you have to reach out to someone 10 or 20 times, right? Well, now there's 2,000 contact points, right? That's one full time person making 100 calls a day. It's on the phone or sending out all those texts.
Yeah.
Um, if you're getting in more leads than that, right? You don't reach them all. They start stacking. And if you actually have to do follow up where you aren't just getting in, new people, but you're following up with the same people, where it's typically much easier to sell to the same person multiple times than to just find new people all the time, which most businesses don't get. It starts becoming a Herculean labor to actually do the amount of follow up that is necessary to get all these
Yeah.
sales.
I have
So,
like currently my CRM dashboard is sitting behind our little window here. I have over 100 people that I need to follow up with. And like, and I also have a company to run, right? So, and I've like, it's
So you
crazy.
either need to hire someone to do it and see if they can do that for you, or you need to start automating it. And what we're working on is the automation piece. And because of my weakness is probably why I feel this is so important. But I think if you throw enough scale at anyone, it becomes anyone's weakness.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to shift and talk a little bit about your common enemy, right? So every superhero has an arch nemesis, and it's a thing they constantly have to fight against in their world. And in the world of business, it takes on a lot of forms. But for the context of this conversation, we like to put it in terms of your clients, right? So the people that might be hiring bigly sales, it's a mindset or a flaw that you're coming up against that you have to constantly fight to overcome so you can actually get them the result they came to you for in the first place. So I know you're in a really new space, so there's probably a lot of mindsets and flaws that you're running into, but what is your arch nemesis right now in the growth of Bigly sales?
I mean, it's really just trying to set something up a way that people have the best chance of succeeding, right? It's, having them listen and say, hey, what are we seeing that's the most successful? And showing them that. So, for example, people are like, oh, just send a Calendly link with what we're doing. And we've tried it. It doesn't work well. People look at it as homework, right? They hate the Calendly links because you're now giving them a task to do, right? So I never want someone giving me homework. It's the same thing where I'm like, hey, I'm having a problem trying to use your product. And I'm talking to customer support. And they're like, why don't you read these 5 articles that we've written that may or may not have anything to do with what you need done? And then you spend a half hour reading the articles and you're like, nope, didn't help at all.
It's
Thanks for
not.
that time suck, because now I'm even more in the hole, right? So, I mean, which is how most companies handle it, right? So, like, they're giving you more work to do instead of making your life easier. So,
And a lot of
it's
the
how
chat
can
programs actually like do that by design, right? So like I know a lot of like software services now you pull up their little chat and you're like, I have a problem. And you put in a thing and it's like, here's 4 articles I found that might have solutions to your problem. I'm like,
yeah,
I don't want to read your 4 articles. I want you to
no,
fix the problem.
that's it. I'm coming for you to help fixing my problem. If it was an easy problem to fix, I would have fixed it
Yeah.
already.
Look, I could have searched your help documents myself, right? I pulled up the live chat because I want to talk to a human can help me solve the problem.
And I'm trying to get it done quickly, and it's probably a little more important because I'm actually on here at 9 o'clock at night or whatever doing it. Yeah, I mean, it's again, that's one of the pain points that we're fighting to correct, to take the nightmare of customer support, the nightmare of call centers today, the nightmare of scheduling, and use AI to fix all those issues.
Yeah. I have companies that you should, like, reach out to and fix for them for you things for them. Like, just like, "Here's a list, fix it for all of these people and make my life better."
Like Comcast and AT&T, if I could ever get Comcast and AT&T, I'm gonna keep talking
Yeah,
trash about
yeah,
them until they
and
start.
every bank on the planet, so
Have you used Bank of America before?
oh, man, we use our bank is really good actually, but, like, still, they have their automated teller who picks up, and I'm like, "If I could just skip the automated teller and you could have a human being, an operator that just sent me to the right place, it would take 2 seconds." And but because they don't wanna they have too much volume to have that person do it, right? And their automated tellers are just I don't know another word to use it other than they're retarded. Like, by the actual dictionary definition, they are retarded and incapable of accomplishing the task that they have been assigned to do.
I mean, so I was in downtown Miami. I used to live in downtown Miami before I had little kids and I moved to the suburbs, right? And we were on this branch in Brickell, which is the financial district of downtown Miami. And they had the Bank of America building. They had this giant branch there, and they made a decision to eliminate all but one teller. And I think they decided to do this in all of their branches. So you'd go in to deal with them, and they would have an hour line, a 2 hour line, something like that. I love Chase. Chase is great. Like, they're my new bank. They're awesome. I would recommend everyone to move away from Bank of America to Chase. But to call customer support there, it's a half hour, right? If I'm calling AT&T or someone like that for customer support, half hour if you're lucky. If I'm calling Comcast, my clicker's been broken in my living room for like, a year now. I just refuse to call Comcast. It's just such a painful process. And it's like, I'm relaxing. I'm going to watch a football game or something. It's like, do I want to call Comcast and ruin my day? And I'm like, yeah, not today.
Yeah, not
Not
I'll just deal
today.
with the broken clicker for another
Yeah, I can still kind of push it in with my pinky if I try the
You know
thing.
it's
Even
painful when you will live with the problem for a year rather than call customer service.
there was this thing that I saw the other day. I'm like, maybe it's just me. Like, maybe I'm the only one who feels this way and I'm unique. And I saw this thing that 30% of Americans would rather shave their head than deal with customer service. And I'm pretty sure they're talking about like Comcast and AT&T. Like that, those
Yeah.
are like the home. Those are like, I called this and now I'd like to shave my head. Like, but if you can promise me I never have to do this again. So,
So, I
I mean,
think my next question is a perfect transition from that point, right? So, your driving force. The flip side of your common enemy is your driving force, and just like Spider-Man fights to save, New York and Batman fights to save Gotham or Google's fighting to index and categorize all the world's information, what is it that you're fighting for? What's your mission with Bigly Sales?
so I want to solve this problem. I want to fix customer support. I want to fix call centers. I want to make it, you know, wonderful as an experience for people and use AI to do it. And the tech is here. We have it working in a sandbox
Yeah.
environment already. So, I mean, just imagine calling into, next time you call into your bank, you call Bank of America, instead of getting an automated system, so a sweet sounding person picks up the phone, man or woman. We'll test different voices, right? You can do like a little spin-off of Morgan Freeman or, James Earl Jones or maybe Elizabeth Hurley or whatever. Like whatever your favorite kind of voice is. Like, do you want to have Hugh Grant be talking to you like during your thing? Right.
This is
And
part of your profile at the bank, it knows who your favorite voice actor is, and
that'd be amazing, right? So, Hugh Grant can tell me all the stuff. And now it's hooked to ChatGPT, but ChatGPT has full access to their system. So we've taken all their documentation, right? All of their relevant customer information, all their support information, put it into databases, to different vector databases, and then you can kind of point to which one you want to send it to. So as soon as it says, oh, you say, yeah, I'm looking for some help about my account. It says, okay, we need information on accounts, right? And it might say, what sort of account are you calling about? Is this a credit card account or, a checking account or a savings? It said, oh, I'm calling about my credit card account, right? So, and then it goes to that database and then, it can nicely ask you, what's your problem? How can I help you, Mr. Ryan? And, be able to get the answer to your problem and do it real time. Obviously, there's going to have to be security on there, right? They're going to
yeah.
probably have some sort of
Mm,
two-factor send your code. By the way, I tell this to everyone. However bad you think fraud is on the internet, it is so much worse than you can possibly imagine. Just telling you, it's worse. Get two-factor, especially on your phone. right? For all of your
Yeah.
phone stuff, for your phone pin, like just go do it. Like, trust me, get the two-factor, because if someone steals your cell phone, they could clean out your bank accounts without you even knowing. But off topic. Sorry.
Security. Take it
So,
seriously.
oh God, is it bad out there?
So,
Anyway,
what is it popped into my head? You're talking about these agents, right? We're talking about fixing agents
uh,
on the customer service side. One of the things we were talking about how like this is the very infant like beginning side of this. We're not too far off from like your phone having your AI assistant who knows all of the stuff that you need to know, and you
oh,
just be
that's
like,
coming
"Hey,
too. That's coming too. Like
take
that's
talk to my bank, get it taken care of," and like your AI will talk to their AI, and they'll just solve it for you. Like that's not far off.
No, it isn't. That's the stuff that's the thousand times, million times that I haven't even really thought about yet. I'm just trying to solve like the one major problem in front of me right now, and then we'll
Yeah,
iterate. Right? That's the agile methodology. Solve the big thing first, and then iterate from there, because you can never think far enough into the future to figure out
yeah.
exactly how everything is going to
And
work.
if you're listening to this and you want to experience what he's talking about right now, call Apple's customer support right now because Apple's customer support already has a generative AI voice that you talk to. And I called them a couple months ago with a problem with one of my son's accounts. We were trying to figure out what was going on with it. And it took me like 3 or 4 minutes of chatting with this thing on there. I was like, "You're not a human being, are you?" But, like, it was really hard to tell that I wasn't talking to a human being, and it did respond. It was like, "You're no, you're correct. I'm an AI assistant." But, "Are you having a problem with, like, my service right now?" I was like, "No, it's working really well." And
Best service I've
yeah,
ever had.
they got me directly to the person that could help me in minutes, and I was blown away by that. I was like, that's not far off for a lot of companies because of, what you're building, what you're helping people build, right? Apple's got all the resources in the world to do that, but not every company does.
There's a competitor. I don't know who they are, but whoever did the AI for Five Guys Burger for their ordering system, it's phenomenal, right?
Yeah,
So
like
if you want to see another one that actually works well at the moment, guys who did Five Guys Burger, I haven't figured out who it is yet, but like if I want to order something from Five Guys Burger, it takes my order, it does it better than a human. It asks me anything I want. It gets any order, it gets any change, like it gets everything right. It reads it back to me, and like it
on the phone,
works
huh? I'm gonna have to call it
on
just
the
to test it.
phone. Yeah, like, and plus Five Guys Burger is absolutely delicious.
Yeah, they do make good burgers. And so, like, to your end, I'm really looking forward to seeing more and more of that take over the customer service because the couple of times that I've actually experienced it done well, it is worlds apart different than talking to the retarded phone automation system that can't get you to the right
Well,
they
the
send you the
IVR
answer.
stuff, it's so
Yeah,
bad. It's so bad,
yeah.
and then I don't wanna listen to something. "Hey, our menu has recently changed. Please listen to everything we have to say," and I'm there for, like, a minute or 2, and I'm losing my mind. I'm going, "I don't have much
Have
time
you
right
you
now."
said you have kids, right? How old are your kids right now?
I got a one-year-old, a five-year-old, and a nine-year-old.
So you understand the problem with talking to a voice activated system with customer service where they're like, please read out the numbers of whatever. And then you try to read them out. And then, 14 times in the time of you reading out the number back to them, one of your children screamed and said something else and it can no longer understand you because, you know, you're having to talk to a system in the midst of chaos, the
Yeah.
chaos of children. It's, the kind of things that a human being could handle, but like the automated systems can't. But you get into some of these AI systems, they can handle that. They can understand which voice is yours and which one isn't.
I mean,
That's
it's really impressive. It really is. And
yeah.
you haven't met my children. They are not calm. So
Yeah, not calm. I know that's like I have 3 little girls and a 14-year-old son, but my 3 little girls are like 4, 7, and 10. They shriek constantly. I'm, surprised they haven't shrieked while we've been on this thing, but yeah, I'm like, I have to call the bank, I'm like, "Listen, you guys go outside. I'm gonna be on the phone with the bank for the next 10 minutes trying to get to the right representative.
yep.
And if you mess it up, I have to."
10 minutes, yeah, oh, if it was only 10 minutes, it wouldn't be that bad. I mean, usually I mean, that's what I wanna fix. That's my nemesis, right? If I
Yeah,
can
common
fix
enemy, that's the driving force.
the if I can fix those automated systems, if I can make it so you never have to wanna shave your head again, right? That you can get through to who you need to talk to. They can it can do it with the computer. It can answer your question for you for any level 1 support question you may have, for anything that you're calling, for anything at the bank, for anything at AT&T, for anything at Comcast. It can troubleshoot, right? Now, instead of some guy, in Guatemala or something who's trying to answer your questions for you about your TV, it has all the documentation on your TV. Oh, try this. What's your serial number? Where do I find the serial number? The serial number is going to be on the bottom. What type of TV do you have? I got a Sony, right? 60-inch. I don't really know the serial model. Okay. It's going to be on the bottom side, bottom right. If you look underneath, oh, there it is. Okay. Punch in that number. All right. Based on your model, here's exactly what you need to do. Hold the remote, hold these two buttons, do this, do that, and walk you through it, fix your problem. Right. I mean, it's going to be able to do things we only dreamed of. It's going to be, the know everything tool. All you have to do is set up the information in it correctly and, put it in vector databases so it can find it. And, that's not that hard a problem to do. It's not that hard to create buckets like S3 buckets where you can go and just find the data that you need. So, that's what I want to work on. I want to fix this problem once and for all, from the consumer standpoint and then from the business standpoint, better, faster, cheaper, right?
You can
Better,
break
faster, cheaper.
line.
I mean, that's it. You're going to get rid of the waiting line issue where half the time you've guys sitting around twiddling their thumbs. The other half the time there's a half-hour wait, right? You're going to get rid of, and then everyone gets on the phone and is livid because they've just been waiting for a half hour. It's going to fix those problems. It's going to fix someone giving you the wrong information, someone telling you the wrong thing. So, right, you're never going to have wrong information again. You're always going to have, we use it as the single source of truth, the information that we enter into the system. There might be something different on the internet, but this is the source of truth that the AI uses,
Yeah.
right? So, I mean, it's going to fix the hiring issue. I don't know if you've tried to hire recently, but it's not that easy, especially if you're trying to hire on site. God. Right? You need people in a physical building. Now you need everyone within 10 miles of where you are, and you need to get 1,000 of them, or you need to get 100 of them. Like, good luck, So, I mean, it just fixes all of these issues: the training problem, the hiring problem. Now you got to train one system, right?
Yeah. So
Now you got to set up.
and people need to start looking at solving these problems. If you want to remain competitive in the business space, there are businesses that are already working on this. There's businesses like yours that are helping businesses like mine solve these problems. And if you don't, you won't be able to compete with me. You won't be able to compete with the other companies that are implementing these things.
You're going to have no chance. I think the companies that are early adopters at this end up winning. The big global tech companies just get more valuable, primarily because of this tech, right? So I can't think of a company that, them doing VC type stuff in the past. Like, what's the last time you heard Apple write someone $1 billion check, or Amazon or Google write someone $1 billion check as their VC? I know they have a VC arm, but I mean, Microsoft put $10 billion into this.
Yeah.
What do
And
they
open it
see?
last year.
Yeah, last year. What do they see? Amazon put $4 billion in, right? Facebook has their own division. I think they forget who else put another couple of billion into this. Tesla.
Yeah.
What does Elon see? I mean, the
Yeah.
smartest people who know the most about this stuff are putting in tens of billions of dollars. These are the
Yeah.
guys in the know.
Yeah. And it's like Apple's got billions of dollars in research and development. They just released one of their open models on it that's, it's an image recognition model that's ridiculous. So it's called Ferret, I think. It's super cool if you haven't played with that one yet. Yeah, everyone who has a stake in the game is putting major investments.
I mean,
Um,
Facebook is putting billions in,
They're
Apple
like,
is putting
wow.
billions in, Tesla's putting billions in, Microsoft put in, I mean, it's 10 billion plus, I've never seen this level of investment kind of anywhere at this short a period of time. I mean, I
Oh, yeah.
can't think
We're
of it.
talking like since January of last year to January of this year, billions in every sector.
And these aren't dumb guys.
Yeah.
Nadella
They didn't
and
accidentally
Musk
do-
and
They didn't
You know.
accidentally build multi-billion-dollar companies.
this isn't the short bus doing this, right? Bezos and these are the smartest guys in the room, and they're all like, "Oh my God, we're all in."
Yeah.
So
And now a quick word from our show's sponsor. Hey there, fellow podcaster. Having a weekly audio and video show on all the major online networks that builds your brand, creates fame, and drives sales for your business doesn't have to be hard. I know it feels that way because you've tried managing your show internally and realize how resource intensive it can be. You felt the pain of pouring 8 to 10 hours of work into just getting 1 hour of content published and promoted all over the place. You see the drain on your resources, but you do it anyways because you know how powerful it is. Heck, you've probably even tried some of those automated solutions and ended up with stuff that makes your brand look cheesy and cheap. That's not helping grow your business. Don't give up though. The struggle ends now. Introducing Push Button Podcasts, a done-for-you service that will help you get your show out every single week without you lifting a finger after you've pushed that stop record button. We handle everything else: uploading, editing, transcribing, writing, research, graphics, publication, and promotion, all done by real humans who know, understand, and care about your brand almost as much as you do. Empowered by our own proprietary technology, our team will let you get back to doing what you love while we handle the rest. Check us out at pushbuttonpodcast.com/hero for 10% off the lifetime of your service with us, and see the power of having an audio and video podcast growing and driving micro celebrity status and business in your niche without you having to lift more than a finger to push that stop record button. Again, that's pushbuttonpodcast.com/hero. See you there. Now back to the Hero Show.
I think that's a great place to sort of get to the end of our interview. I have one more question for you. It's about your guiding principles. One of the things that makes heroes heroic is that they live by a code. For instance, Batman never kills his enemies. He only ever puts them in Arkham Asylum. So as we wrap up the interview, I want to talk about the top one, maybe two principles that you live your life by, you run your business by, maybe something you'd wish you know when you first started your business,
Yeah,
when you
I
first
mean,
started your career.
I try to hold very high standards for people, right? We want very high standards, but we never want to be duplicitous in what we do. We always want to be honest. I want to treat people honestly. I want them to know that I'm going to stand by my word. I think these things are very important, that you need to be honest and be trusted. And if you look at the people that I'm working with, I have a couple of guys who worked with me at a previous company, so most of my team has been with me, even though it's a new business, for a few years now, right? That, I have my customer success guys have been with me for 5+ years. My data person's been with me for 5+ years. I have some new staff on the engineering side because we just went a different direction with, the tech tools that we were doing. But, I think you have to be honest with people. You have to set clear expectations with people. You need to hold high levels of accountability. And, those are the principles I try to run my business by. Just be
Yeah.
honest and genuine and set expectations and be very clear about what those expectations are. And then for me, if I say, hey, this is the standard, and, we agree on that up front, right? I agree with you. Hey, this is what we're going to do, right? And this is what I expect. And are you on board? Is that work for you? And the people are like, yeah, that sounds great. And then they don't meet that standard, right? Well, then it's a very easy conversation. Say, hey, we talked about what we expected. We're not where we need to be. What do we need to do to get there? And it's either that you manage them in or you manage them out, right? And just having those conversations, that's how you deal with people. I think that's the most important thing. Your people, the tech is going to be great, but still, and all these companies say this and they never mean it. I actually mean this. Your people are your strength. If you hire really good, smart, courteous, hardworking people, things are going to go well. I have a no jerk rule, right? Like if someone's a jerk in the organization, I don't need them. I don't care how talented they are. I don't care if they're the top sales rep. I've done it before. It's just not worth it, right? I don't care if they're the best engineer, right? If they're going to treat everyone else like a jerk and they're going to break things and they're going to be, inconsiderate and I mean, people talk about like the rock star programmer.
Yeah.
I don't want the guy coming in who's going to trash the hotel room and throw the couch out the window, right? I don't want the rock star. I want the person who is do things the right way.
Yeah.
Maybe the country star. I guess it depends on which one.
Yeah, and that's a fascinating thought too. One of, just in the context of AI, right, and people, one of the things that AI is going to do is it's going to make businesses less tolerant of people who are not going to show up well, right? Because if you're going to use AI to make superhumans, you don't want to make supervillains,
Yeah, yeah,
but it's going to upcycle just the quality of people, right? Because you're going to have to, if you want to be commercially viable, your rock star ability will pale in comparison to the AI tools. It's just going
yeah,
to. So you're going to have the cultural skills, the soft skills, all the other things that go along with that, the things that actually enhance the AI, right? The cultural understanding and the human connection and the ability to, feed it good data, understand, like the ability to work together well with it is going to be what's more valuable going forward. And it's going to be less of that, rock star ability.
yeah. No, I mean, for sure, for sure. But it's just, if you're clear and you set clear expectations, I mean, I think that is really the most important thing, to set your vision, set what you want to do, set clear expectations, set high standards. Is what ends up happening if you don't set high standards. If you say, we're going to just let these guys kind of mess around and half the guys don't have to do anything, then you have the other half of the guys who are really working hard. The guys who are working really hard are saying, well, these guys are doing nothing. Why am I the jerk who's working so hard when they're not doing anything? And what ends up happening is everyone's level comes down here,
Yeah.
right? So as soon as that's tolerated and acceptable in the organization, and I like leading by example where I can. I mean, I want people to see that I'm working hard. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm setting the right direction for the company and the organization and, doing as much as I can, again, while delegating all the stuff that I should.
Yeah.
But, I think you need to set the tone for it personally. And it's just, you can't accept that stuff, or you just, all the good players want to leave. They either quit or they just say, why am I working hard? Because, it's, no one else is, right? So you see that commercial with the monkeys where all the monkeys are in the room and the one guy's like, I'm trying to do my work, and you're surrounded by the monkeys. So if you allow that,
Yeah.
the good guys all leave.
So what I want to do then is, I think that's a good place to wrap our interview because it's so true. You have to run your organization the way that, with the integrity and the value that you want. But I finish every interview with a simple challenge. I call it the Heroes Challenge. And it's just to help us get access to stories we might not otherwise find on our own. So the question is simple. Do you have someone in your life or in your network who you think has a cool entrepreneurial story? Who are they? First names are fine. And why do you think they should come share their story with us here on the Heroes Show? First person that comes to mind for you.
First person who comes to mind was a cool entrepreneurial story. You know what? I'll tell you, my friend Micah. So I told him I was doing this podcast yesterday. He was like, that's so cool. I can't believe that. And he's also working on a lot of AI stuff. And he's very technical.
Yeah.
So I would think him because, he's taken a very unusual path and, done a lot of different things in marketing and, with AI. So
Well, we'll reach out afterwards and see if we can get an introduction to Micah. Maybe he'll come on the show. Maybe he won't, but sometimes we get cool stories that way. So thank you for that. And then the last part of our interview, in comic books, there's always the crowd of people at the end who are cheering and clapping for the acts of heroism. So as we close, what I would want to do is find out where can people get your help if they want help in their sales organization to build this AI stuff in. Where can they go? And then number two is who are the right types of people to raise their hands and actually reach out?
so bigleysales.com, we're going to be helping everyone, right? We're going to help everyone with their sales organization. With our SMS tools and our email tools and our voice tools, we can help pretty much everyone. Right now, we're dealing with home services, insurance, and legal. Right? Those are the verticals that I'm dealing with at the moment. We will expand beyond that. So anyone who needs to be able to deal with a volume of leads coming in, to automate the response to those leads, to follow up with those leads until either we say stop, right? Like someone says stop because we follow the TPCA rules very seriously. We're doing everything TCPA compliant. Our lawyer actually is the lawyer for the industry group that goes and testifies in front of the FCC and the FTC. So we're doing everything by the book. So, I mean, if you want to do business that way, come and we would love to help you out and get that set up for you. And then anyone with a large call center organization, anyone employing hundreds of people, call center setting, anyone who has a large customer support organization or a large customer support workload, we can set up the AI to automate this process for you, improve your customer experience, have happier customers, and cut your costs.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on today. Really appreciate getting to have you here on the show and to tell your story. And just in terms of those things, I'm going to stick around for a couple of minutes afterwards because I have some introductions I want to make for you just in that space because I know some organizations that I think will be really useful for what you do. And I know if you're thinking about this now and you have an organization, you're doing sales, this stuff is not the kind of stuff that you want to put off till next year. Not that it'll be too late. It's that other people will be beating you to it. Take the time, look into these technologies, figure out how you can implement them. If not in sales and customer service and other areas, right? We're doing a lot in service delivery. It's really important. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story today, Thomas. Appreciate your time. You got any final words of wisdom for our audience for this stop record button?
Funnel words. I mean, I'm talking to some companies right now that can save 10 to 100 million a year by putting this in. I mean, these are not small numbers. We're talking just massive numbers for these businesses. So that's my last word of wisdom, that this is such a game changer for companies. You know, we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars if it's a larger organization.
That's awesome. Thank you very much, Thomas.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of The Hero Show, where we work to shift the cultural narrative around entrepreneurship and celebrate the heropreneurs who make our world a better place. Don't forget to visit our website at theheroshow.tv, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, or via RSS, so you'll never miss an episode. If you found value in our show, we'd truly appreciate a rating on iTunes. Or better yet, share it with a friend to help us spread the message of entrepreneurship as a force for good. Curious to learn more about the stories and insights of these incredible heropreneurs? Check out our in-depth interviews and resources on our website. Together, let's support and inspire the next generation of entrepreneurs as they embark on their own heroic journeys. Join us again next week for another episode of The Hero Show, where we'll continue to explore the world of heropreneurs, their superpowers, and the positive impact they bring to our lives. Until then, stay heroic.